It wasn't about charity or good deeds. It was about using service as deliberate character development. What do you mean by that? I asked her later. I want to be someone who notices when others need help and acts on it, she explained. Someone who shows up consistently, not just when it's convenient. You can't become that kind of person just by thinking about it. You have to practice it. This wasn't some young idealist with unrealistic dreams. This was someone who understood something that took me decades to figure out. That character is built through daily choices, not grand gestures. Over the following weeks, I watched how Sarah interacted with everyone. She remembered personal details about people's lives. She always took on the hardest tasks without being asked. She was completely present in every moment, never distracted by her phone or thinking about something else. One morning, we were sorting through damaged goods, and she picked up a can with a torn label. "This reminds me of people," she said casually. "Sometimes you can't tell what's valuable from the outside. You have to look more carefully." She wasn't just talking about cans. That was the moment I knew I was falling in love with her mind. Not her appearance, though she was beautiful. Not her age or what she could offer my life practically, but the way she thought about the world. The depth of her character. The person she was choosing to become through her daily actions. I'd been married before, obviously, but those relationships were built on different foundations. Compatibility, shared goals, mutual attraction, all important things, but somehow not enough to last. This felt different. This felt like meeting someone whose character I admired so much that I wanted to spend my life learning from her way of seeing the world. The age difference concerned me initially. 30 and 53 isn't insignificant. But the more I got to know Sarah, the more I realized that wisdom isn't just about how many years you've lived. It's about how much attention you've paid to those years. Sarah had paid attention in a way that many people never do, regardless of age. She had figured out truths about service, character, and purpose that had taken me decades to understand. One Saturday, after we finished our work, I asked if she'd like to get coffee. Not as Elon Musk, the CEO, but as the person I was becoming. She said yes. We talked for 3 hours. Not about rockets or cars or technology, but about books that changed how she thought about education, about her family, about what makes life meaningful. I found myself sharing things I rarely discuss publicly. My struggles with finding meaning beyond achievement. My growing understanding that success without connection feels empty. "You know what I've noticed about you?" she said. "You become different here, more present, more yourself somehow." She was right. Away from all the complexity of my public life, all the pressure and expectations, I was just a person helping other people. I asked if she'd like to have dinner sometime. She said yes. Our conversations over the following weeks ranged from education to space exploration to climate change, but we always came back to the same theme. How do you live a meaningful life? How do you make sure your daily choices align with your deepest values? Sarah challenged my thinking in ways that felt exciting rather than threatening. When I talked about Mars colonization, she asked thoughtful questions about ensuring we don't neglect problems here on Earth. Her questions weren't criticism, they were genuine curiosity about complex issues. These conversations weren't just intellectually stimulating, they were changing how I approached my work and life. I started paying more attention to my daily choices, not just my long-term strategy. 2 months ago, I knew I wanted to marry her. The certainty hit me during one of our Saturday mornings together. Sarah was leading a project, and I watched her coordinate with everyone, making sure they felt included. She was patient, creative, and brought out the best in everyone around her. I realized that Sarah didn't just make me want to be better, she made everyone around her better. When I was with her, I was more thoughtful, more present, more conscious of my choices. When I was with her, I wanted to be worthy of the person she saw in me. I didn't just love Sarah. I loved who I was when I was with her. I loved the life we were building together. Most importantly, I trusted her to help me become the person I wanted to be. 3 weeks ago, I asked her to marry me. I didn't plan some elaborate proposal. The moment came naturally during one of our Saturday mornings as we were working side by side. "Sarah," I said, stopping and turning to face her. She looked up, sensing something was different. "I love you," I said. "I love your mind and your heart, and the way you see the world. I love who I am when I'm with you. I pulled out the ring. Simple and elegant. Will you marry me? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, tears forming in her eyes. Yes, she said. Of course, yes. We're planning a simple ceremony for early next year. Nothing elaborate. We want to focus on what matters, the commitment we're making to each other. I know some people will focus on our age difference when this becomes public. Others will speculate about motives. That's inevitable when your personal life becomes public. But here's what I want people to understand, especially those of you who have lived long enough to know what really matters in relationships. Love isn't just about finding someone who fits into your existing life. Sometimes it's about finding someone who shows you a better way to live. Sarah has shown me that character isn't built through accomplishments, but through daily choices about how you treat others. That the most meaningful work might not be professional work at all. Most importantly, she's shown me that love later in life can be even deeper than love when you're young, because you bring more awareness of what matters. More appreciation for finding someone who shares your deepest values. For those of you in your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, I want you to know it's never too late to find love. It's never too late to be surprised by someone who changes how you see the world. But that kind of love requires showing up as who you really are. It requires being willing to be seen clearly with all your imperfections. It requires the courage to be vulnerable at any age. Sarah could have chosen someone her own age, someone without the complications of my public life. But she chose someone whose character she'd observed, someone she'd seen when there were no cameras, no performance required. That's the kind of love worth waiting for at any age. The kind built on really knowing each other's character, not just being attracted to each other's potential. I'm sharing this because I want people to understand the best relationships can happen anywhere, at any time, if you're living authentically and paying attention to the character of the people around you. Sarah and I met because we were both trying to practice being the people we hope to become. That practice led us to each other, and now we want to continue that practice together. For those of you who are single and wondering if love might find you again, keep showing up as your best self. Keep doing the things that reflect your values, whether anyone is watching or not. You never know who else might be doing the same thing, right there beside you. To those who are married or partnered, remember that relationships grow when both people are committed to becoming better versions of themselves. When you support each other's growth, when you practice your values together. And to Sarah, thank you for showing me that love doesn't have to be complicated to be profound. That the deepest connections happen when we're simply being ourselves, in service of something larger than ourselves. Thank you for teaching me that the question isn't whether we're worthy of love, but whether we're willing to practice being the people we hope to become. I want to be honest with those of you listening this. For years after my previous relationships ended, I wondered if I would ever find the right person. If maybe I was just too difficult, too focused on work, too set in my ways to build something lasting with someone. There were nights when I questioned whether the problem was me, whether my drive to solve big problems made me impossible to live with, whether the public attention that comes with my work would always get in the way of real intimacy, whether I had missed my chance for the kind of deep partnership I saw other couples enjoy. I started to accept that maybe marriage wasn't for me, that maybe I should focus entirely on my work and my children from previous relationships, that maybe some people are meant to change the world and others are meant to find lasting love, but rarely both. But meeting Sarah has shown me something I had almost given up believing, that when you meet the right person, everything that seemed complicated before suddenly becomes simple. All those failed relationships weren't signs that I was incapable of love. They were preparation for recognizing the real thing when it finally appeared. Each relationship taught me something about what I needed, what I could offer, and what kind of partnership would actually work for someone like me. Sarah doesn't see my work as competition for her attention. She sees it as part of who I am, just as her teaching is part of who she is. We don't have to choose between our individual purposes and our shared life. They strengthen each other. She doesn't need me to be someone different. She fell in love with who I actually am, including the parts that might seem challenging to others. My intensity, my tendency to think about problems even during downtime, my need to work on things that matter, These aren't obstacles to overcome in our relationship. They're simply part of me that she accepts and even appreciates. For the first time in my life, I'm with someone who makes me feel like I can be completely myself while still growing into a better version of that self. I don't have to pretend to be more relaxed than I am, or less driven, or different in any fundamental way. I just have to be willing to keep practicing becoming the person I hope to be. After all the public speculation about my personal life over the years, after all the relationships that didn't work despite everyone's best efforts, I finally understand what people mean when they talk about finding the one. It's not about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections complement your own, whose growth supports your growth, whose presence makes you want to be worthy of the love they're offering. The white stripe has finally begun after so many dark periods, not because everything in my life is suddenly easy, but because I'm no longer facing the challenges alone. I have a partner who shares my deepest values, who practices the same intentional approach to life that I'm learning, who sees the world with the same mix of hope and determination that drives my work. This gives me hope for anyone reading this who has experienced relationship disappointments, who wonders if they'll ever find their person, who fears they might be too old or too set in their ways or too complicated for lasting love. Sometimes the right person appears exactly when you stop looking for them and start focusing on becoming who you're meant to be. Sometimes love finds you not when you're trying to be perfect, but when you're practicing being authentic. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with dramatic romance, but with quiet moments alongside someone whose character you come to admire. The best is yet to come. If you're someone who has given up on finding love, please don't. If you're someone who thinks your best years are behind you, they're not. If you're someone who believes that past failures mean future impossibility, you're wrong. I thought I knew what I was looking for in a partner for most of my adult life. Someone successful, someone who could match my energy, someone who understood the demands of building companies and changing the world. I was looking for someone who could fit into the life I had already built. What I found instead was someone who showed me how to build a better life entirely. Someone who taught me that success without character feels empty, that achievement without purpose is hollow, that all the rockets and cars and technologies in the world matter far less than the simple act of showing up consistently for the people and causes you care about. Sarah didn't complete me. That's not how real love works. Instead, she showed me how to complete myself through daily practice of the values we both hold dear. She didn't fill a void in my life. She helped me realize that I had been looking for meaning in all the wrong places. What I discovered through Sarah is that I'd been approaching relationships all wrong for decades. I was looking for someone who would admire my achievements, support my ambitions, and fit seamlessly into the life I had already constructed. I wanted a partner who would be impressed by the rockets and the companies and the vision for the future. But Sarah wasn't impressed by any of that, at least not in the way I expected. She saw through all the external success to something deeper, the person I was trying to become underneath all the noise. She fell in love with my curiosity, my genuine desire to help people, my willingness to show up and do simple work alongside others. That taught me something profound about love that I had never understood before. True love isn't about finding someone who validates your existing self-image. It's about finding someone who sees your potential for growth and supports your journey toward becoming your best self. Sarah never made me feel like I needed to choose between being successful and being human. She never asked me to slow down or change my fundamental drive to solve big problems. Instead, she helped me understand that the work only matters if it's rooted in genuine care for people, not just abstract problem solving. This is what I want everyone reading this to understand, especially those who might think they're too old or too set in their ways for transformative love. The right person doesn't change who you are. They help you become more fully yourself while also challenging you to grow in ways you never imagined. There's something I need to share about the practical side of our relationship that might surprise people. Sarah and I don't live in some romantic fantasy where everything is perfect. We have real conversations about real challenges, like how my unpredictable schedule affects our plans, how her teaching salary and my wealth create dynamics we have to navigate carefully, how the age difference means we're at different life stages in some ways. But here's what makes it work. We talk about these things openly, without pretending they don't exist. Sarah doesn't pretend my money doesn't matter, and I don't pretend her youth doesn't sometimes intimidate me. We face these realities together and figure out solutions that respect both our needs. For example, when I have to travel for work, Sarah doesn't get upset or make demands. Instead, she uses that time for her own projects, grading papers, reading, spending time with her friends. When I'm back, we're both more present because we've had space to be ourselves individually. She's also helped me understand something about wealth that I never considered before. Money can isolate you if you're not careful. It can make genuine connections harder because people treat you differently. But Sarah treats me the same whether we're at a fancy restaurant or eating sandwiches in her small apartment. She sees through the money to the person, which is rarer than you might think. The point is, real love isn't about finding someone who eliminates all your problems. It's about finding someone willing to face problems honestly together, someone who makes you want to be better while accepting who you are right now. I know many of you reading this have been hurt before. Maybe you've been through divorces that left you questioning whether you're capable of lasting love. Maybe you've settled into routines that feel safe but empty. Maybe you've convinced yourself that companionship at this stage of life means finding someone who won't rock the boat, someone comfortable and predictable. But what I've learned with Sarah is that the most profound connections often come when you're least expecting them, and they rarely look like what you thought you wanted. I wasn't looking for a teacher 23 years younger than me. I wasn't seeking someone who would challenge my assumptions about success and meaning. I thought I needed someone from my world who understood the pressures of building companies and changing industries. Instead, I found someone from a completely different world who helped me remember what those pressures were supposed to serve in the first place. Real people living real lives, hoping for better futures for themselves and their children. Sarah has taught me that age differences matter far less than shared values and mutual respect. That wisdom isn't measured in years, but in how deeply you've thought about what makes life meaningful. That the best, one foot on familiar ground, the other hovering over unknown territory, trying to summon the courage to move. I don't want you to think of this as a sad moment. It's not. It's a real moment. It's the kind of moment that comes to everyone eventually, when you're forced to pause and ask yourself, what matters most? What are you willing to release so that something else, something new, can grow? And yet, even knowing that, it's not easy. My mind keeps searching for reasons to stay the same, to hold on tighter, to keep everything exactly as it's always been. But somewhere deeper, in a place beyond logic, I know it's time. Time to make space, time to let go. I'm sharing this with you because I've learned that when you hold something like this inside, it grows heavier. But when you speak it, when you share it, it becomes lighter, even if just a little. And right now, I need that. I need you to understand what this moment feels like. So as you're listening, know that you're not just hearing words, you're hearing a turning point. Not a tragedy, not an ending, a turning point. And just like every turning point, it's filled with uncertainty, fear, but also a strange kind of hope. In a few minutes, I'll tell you why this goodbye has to happen. But before that, I just want you to feel what I'm feeling right now. The weight of a decision, the quiet before a change, the heartbeat of a moment when you know you're about to step into something new. Because this isn't just my story, this is our story. Every one of us will face a goodbye we didn't plan for, a goodbye we didn't want, but one that still shapes us. And when it comes, it's not weakness to feel nervous, to hesitate, to hold on for one last second. It's human. So here I am, speaking not as a businessman, not as an inventor, but as a person standing on the edge of a choice. My voice might sound calm, but my heart is racing. My hands might be steady, but inside I'm trembling just a little. Because in a moment, I will tell you what this goodbye is and why I have no choice but to make it. So why? That's the question, isn't it? Why say goodbye at all when everything looks like it's still working, when the world thinks you're still on top, when people expect you to keep going, no matter what? The truth is, sometimes the hardest part of success isn't starting something. It's knowing when to let go. Knowing when your presence is no longer helping, but holding back. Knowing when the thing you built needs space to breathe without you constantly standing over it. That's where I am right now. And it feels strange to even admit it. For years, my life has been about building rockets, cars, ideas, futures. Every time I thought, this is it. This is the mission that will define me. And for a while it did. But missions have lifespans, just like people. They're born, they grow, they mature, and sometimes they reach a point where you realize your role isn't to hold on tighter, but to step aside and let them evolve on their own. That's the goodbye I'm talking about. Not goodbye to life, not goodbye to the dream, but goodbye to the version of me that always had to be at the center of everything. There comes a moment when you have to ask, am I doing this because it's still the best I can give, or because I'm afraid of who I'll be if I stop? That question has been haunting me for months. And the answer, though painful, is clear. I have to step back. Not because I'm tired, not because I've lost faith, but because there's a bigger truth here. No one person is bigger than the mission. And if I really believe in the future I've been talking about all these years, then I have to trust others to carry it forward. That's the hardest part, honestly. Trust. Trusting that the people around me, the engineers, the dreamers, the leaders, can continue without me watching over every detail. Trusting that I don't have to be everywhere at once, solving every problem. Trusting that maybe, just maybe, I've done enough to give them the tools to succeed without me. And at the same time, I know this goodbye is also a hello. A hello to new challenges, new spaces, new parts of myself I haven't had the courage to explore yet. Because let's be honest, as much as I've done, there are still parts of me that feel unfinished. Still ideas I've been too busy, too distracted, too afraid to face. So this goodbye isn't just about leaving something behind. It's about creating space for something new. I know some people will see this as weakness. They'll say, he gave up, or he couldn't handle it anymore. But they don't understand. Letting go isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest choices you can make. Because it means you're not clinging to control, you're not ruled by fear, you're not hiding behind the safety of routine. It means you're alive enough to grow. Right now, as I'm saying these words, I can feel two voices fighting inside me. One is screaming, stay, don't change, don't risk it. People are counting on you. The other is whispering, go, trust, breathe, become something new. And for once, I'm listening to the whisper. That's why I have to say goodbye. Not because I'm running away, but because I'm running towards something else. Something I don't fully understand yet, but I know is waiting for me on the other side of this choice. And yes, it's scary. Terrifying, actually. To stand in front of millions of people, to admit you don't have all the answers, to say that you're stepping back when the world wants you to keep pushing forward. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Fear is a compass. If something scares you this much, it usually means you're heading in the right direction. So here I am, not with sadness, but with gratitude. Gratitude for everything this journey has given me, and gratitude for the chance to take the next step, even if I don't yet know exactly where it leads. This is my goodbye, not forever, but enough to change everything. When I said I have to say goodbye, I wasn't speaking in riddles, I meant it. And now it's time to tell you exactly what that means. I'm saying goodbye to the version of my life where I was everywhere at once, where every second of my day was consumed by projects, deadlines, launches, risks. I'm saying goodbye to the rhythm of constant pressure, constant urgency, constant responsibility that left me little room to breathe as a human being. But more specifically, I'm saying goodbye to my role at the center of it all, the man who couldn't miss a single meeting, the man who had to approve every design, every plan, every bold move, the man who couldn't allow himself a single day of weakness because the entire world was watching. That version of me has to go. Because here's the truth I've been afraid to admit. For years, I've been chasing so many futures that I forgot to live in the present. I forgot what it means to sit in silence without my mind racing toward the next crisis. I forgot how it feels to laugh without checking my phone every 5 seconds. I forgot that being alive isn't measured only in milestones and achievements, but in the small, fleeting moments you never get back once they're gone. And so, my goodbye is also about reclaiming those moments, I'm leaving behind the idea that I have to sacrifice everything, fire my peace, my health, my relationships, in order to deserve success. That myth is seductive, but it's destructive. And I've lived it long enough to know the cost. You see, success looks glamorous from the outside, but from the inside, it often feels like walking a tightrope over fire. Every step could be the one that makes you fall. Every mistake could burn everything down. And after years of walking that rope, you begin to wonder, is this really the only way to live? For me, the answer came slowly. At first, it was little things, waking up and realizing I hadn't seen the sunrise in months, because my nights bled into mornings without pause. Talking to people I cared about, only to realize I wasn't really listening. I was already mentally somewhere else. Seeing milestones achieved and feeling nothing. No joy, no relief. Just the immediate weight of the next problem waiting in line. And that's when I realized, this isn't sustainable. Not just for me, but for anyone. No matter how strong you think you are, no matter how ambitious, you cannot run at full speed forever. At some point, the engine that drives you becomes the engine that consumes you. That's why I knew a goodbye had to come. Not to the dream, not to the mission, but to the way I've been living that mission. So let me be clear. I'm not abandoning what I built. I'm not turning my back on the future, but I am stepping away from being the one who carries all of it on my shoulders. I'm handing it over to the teams, to the leaders I've trusted, to the people who've proven again and again that they're ready. This isn't a collapse, it's a transition. And transitions are always painful because they force you to confront the part of yourself that doesn't want to let go. I'll tell you something I haven't said out loud before. There was a night not too long ago when I sat alone in my office long after everyone else had gone home. Papers scattered across the desk, screens glowing in the dark, silence louder than any rocket launch, and I asked myself, if I walked away tomorrow, what would remain? The answer wasn't the numbers, the profits, the headlines. It was the people, the ones who gave their lives and hearts to the vision, the ones who stayed late nights, missed family dinners, put everything on the line because they believed. And I realized, I don't need to control them, I need to trust them. That was the turning point. That was when I knew this goodbye wasn't just possible, it was necessary. But let's not pretend it's easy, because even as I speak these words, there's a part of me that wants to pull back, to say, never mind, I can still handle it, I can still keep going like before. That's the addict inside me, addicted to the rush of being indispensable, addicted to the idea that if I step away, everything will fall apart. And yet, I know that's not true. The world doesn't end when one person lets go. In fact, sometimes it begins again. So, this goodbye isn't about failure, it's about faith. Faith in others, faith in the future. And yes, faith in myself, that I can be more than the man who never stopped working, never stopped chasing, never stopped proving. Because here's the deeper truth. I don't want my life to be remembered only in launches and headlines. I want it to be remembered in moments of honesty. In choices that showed courage not just on the outside, but on the inside. This goodbye is one of those choices. I don't know exactly what comes next. Maybe it's time to focus on things I've neglected. Maybe it's time to rediscover parts of myself I've buried under years of deadlines. Maybe it's time to step into silence long enough to finally hear my own voice again. Whatever it is, I know it's waiting, and I know I can't reach it if I keep holding on to everything I've been. So, here's my promise to myself and to you. This goodbye is not an ending. It's a beginning. A beginning that will test me, change me, and, I hope, make me better. And if you take one thing from this moment, let it be this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not to keep fighting, but to stop, to release, to trust, to say goodbye, even when it breaks your heart. Because only then can you discover what you were meant to find all along. If you've listened this far, thank you, truly. Because what I've shared isn't easy for me to say. Goodbyes never are. But I want to leave you with something more than just my story. I want to leave you with lessons. Lessons I've had to learn the hard way, and lessons I hope can help you face the goodbyes in your own life. First, understand this. Saying goodbye is not weakness. We live in a world that celebrates endurance, hustle, never give up. And yes, there's value in persistence. But sometimes the bravest act is not holding on, it's letting go. If you cling too tightly to something, even if it once gave you meaning, you risk crushing it under the weight of your fear. Real strength is the ability to recognize when your chapter is complete and have the courage to close the book. Second, don't confuse identity with role. For years, I believed I was defined by what I built, what I managed, what I controlled. But the truth is, who you are is not the same as what you do. Your worth is not tied to your job title, your projects, your successes. You exist beyond those things. And sometimes, you only realize that when you finally step away. Third, make space. Space to breathe, to think, to rediscover what actually matters. We fill our lives with noise, deadlines, expectations, until there's no silence left. But silence is where you find yourself. It's where the answers live. Don't be afraid of it. Fourth, and maybe most important, trust. Trust others enough to let them carry what you can no longer carry alone. Trust life enough to believe that even if you let go, the world will not collapse. Trust yourself enough to know you are more than the roles you've played. And finally, remember, every goodbye hides a hello. You may not see it yet. You may feel only the loss, the ache, the emptiness. But give it time, and you will find that what looked like an ending was the beginning of something new. So, my advice to you, whether you're facing a goodbye to a person, a job, a dream, or even just an old version of yourself, don't run from it. Don't drown it in distractions. Don't pretend it doesn't hurt. Let yourself feel it. Say the words out loud, and then step forward. Even if it's just one small step, because forward is where life happens. As I stand here, speaking to you, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what this next chapter will look like. But I do know this. I've made peace with the goodbye. And that peace, that's worth more than any trophy, any title, any headline. Sometimes people think that life is a straight road. You set a goal, you walk toward it, and when you arrive, you're complete. But that's not how it works. Life is a series of crossings, of detours, of forks in the road, where you have to decide, do I keep pushing forward the same way, or do I dare to turn? And often, the turn is where you find the parts of yourself you never knew existed. That's why I say, don't fear change, don't fear goodbye, because the truth is, you've already done it many times before. You've said goodbye to the child you once were, to the teenager who thought they knew everything, to the younger version of yourself who believed life would always look a certain way. Each time, it hurt. Each time, it felt like losing something precious. But each time, it gave birth to the person you are now. So maybe the goodbye you're facing today isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the doorway to who you were always meant to become. And if that's true, then the bravest thing you can do is walk through it. So I encourage you, don't fear goodbye. Embrace it, because behind every goodbye, there's a new horizon waiting. And maybe